Folks, good evening. Welcome to the Lone Star Varsity Wrap-Up Show. I'm Phil Torino, just in from the Cooper-Idalou game. Normally, I'd rock the blazer, but I was out there conducting interviews. You know, that shoe leather game, it's kind of serious, so I left the blazer in the car, and it's about to get real serious right now. We're going to go over all the scores from tonight's games. I want to start with these young boys from Lubbock Christian. These young boys from Lubbock Christian were coming at me kind of heavy tonight on Twitter. I don't know if you guys are really about this life, because I've been doing this for a while. You guys get this win over Lockney, and you're talking real tough right now. It's a good win. I love it. We'll see if I pick against you moving forward. I just wanted to let you know I appreciate the engagement. I was telling you, Chris, these young boys from Lubbock Christian, they were feeling real tough tonight. Before I get into all the scores from the other area games, we're going to just examine what I observed with Cooper-Idalou. This is one of the games that was called early, all right? It's going to be a no contest. No one won, no one lost. As you guys guessed, tonight was a mess. It was an absolute disaster. A lot of delays, games starting, games stopped, games ultimately being canceled. Some are going to resume tomorrow. We'll go down all the games that went final. With Cooper-Idalou, you sort of got what was good from both teams and kind of what needs work. The first two touchdowns scored. Jarrett Dagey takes a 46-yard pass that Zach Smith catches, first Cooper touchdown. Idalou's first score is an 81-yard drive on which that team does not pass a single time. It culminates in a Brent Schilling rushing touchdown. The two quarters ended 21-10 in favor of Cooper. I think if that game had continued, Cooper, would have really made that margin a bit wider. It dressed 58 players when Idalou dressed just 27. Idalou would go on to lose starting offensive lineman Nick Ibarra with a lower leg injury, I'll say, and he ended up coming out. So I think Cooper would have, widened that margin. If you guys are just joining us, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We're just in from Cooper-Idalou, and we're going to go over some of the stats, or some of the scores rather, from the area games. In 6A, Friendship big time over El Paso Burgess, 49-0. Odessa 44, Monterey 32. That game was in town at Plains Capital Park. Weatherford 29, Coronado 19. That was a rematch of a game that took place in Sweetwater last year. In 5A, Cannon-Randall at Plainview. That one, we do not have a final for you yet. Cooper 21, Idalou 10. As I mentioned, that only two quarters were played, and it was called because of lightning. It's considered a no contest, so no one won, no one lost. 4A, this is a big result. Muleshoe 43, Levelland 15. Before I go on with the rest of the results, Krista Pirtle was there. She's also in the room. What do you have for me from that game?
I was really surprised with that game. I thought it was going to be a lot more offensive, especially from Loveland opening up their home field. Oh, hello there, people. But one big thing I did notice was the Loveland offensive line. Nick Gerber got hit and hit and hit. He had no time. They had no run game, and that really hurt him.
You mentioned sort of the offensive line and Gerber getting sacked as well. You look back at how last season ended for Levelland. That was a big-time loss to Abilene Wiley in the playoffs. The margin of more than 40 points in that game. Gerber was sacked 7 times there. There's only one starter from that team that's on this current offensive line. I think it's an area that Jared Sanderson, the Levelland coach, and Jet Norman, the OC, they've been kind of cognizant about really working towards getting some fluidity there. This is week 1, and Muleshoe is really no slouch. Was it getting consistent defensive pressure, like from the back part of its defense too, Krista? Like were they blitzing often?
Oh, it was most of the time, and Gerber couldn't do anything with it. Many times he threw it off to the side because he couldn't go anywhere with it. His receivers tried to get up and down field. You couldn't see him because he was getting blitzed so often. So early on, if you want to beat Levelland, blitz up.
Loveland is one of the teams I projected to climb actually in the Lone Star Varsity High School football poll, which we've been doing this week as a joint partnership between the Lubbock AJ, LoneStarVarsity.com, and both Fox 34 and Double T 104.3. I think Loveland will climb, but I'm not sure after this result, at least for the time being. Let's go back through the rest of the 4A scores. Hereford over Estacado, 16-7. Something to keep your eye on in that game. This was the quarterback debut of Bo Sims. He's a 6'3" sophomore quarterback for the Matadors. This is obviously his first time, playing varsity after spending all last year as a freshman quarterback. Coach Zanny Servan seems to be very high on him. I'll go back and look at what the specifics of this result were. But once again, Hereford 16, Estacado 7. Snyder overcomes Littlefield 38-35. This was a game in my Lone Star Varsity Minute yesterday. I picked Snyder. I think this is a team at a bit of a crossroads. It's had some time to work under Coach James Polk. It's gotten its numbers up to a place where it can consistently field a legitimate team and not just a 4A school with less than 30 players out. You have to be able to beat 3A teams like Littlefield that do not have established players a lot of positions just yet. I like this result. It was maybe a little too close for comfort, but it's important that Snyder got this once you consider how really dangerous that district that the Tigers play in is.
All right, a couple questions from the audience, Phil. We got someone wanted to know how Coronado looked tonight or fared, and also how good is the Sweetwater team to beat Lubbock High 56-7?
Sure. First of all, with Coronado, that game was at Weatherford. I have not had any eyes on it just yet. We have the final score. It's something that I intend on writing on further to see how, particularly Quay Gray did in what is his first varsity start. And Gray is a sophomore quarterback for the Mustangs. And your other question
was how good Sweetwater is if they're able to dominate Lubbock High that bad.
Sweetwater was superb last year. You have to recall that prior to beating Lubbock High in the opener last season, Sweetwater had not made the playoffs in 5 seasons. It gets that 66-35 win against Lubbock High to open last year, and look at where its season ended, 4 rounds deep in the playoffs. As of right now, I don't know. I can't forecast if that's where Sweetwater's season will end. From what I saw last night, it had a lot of rushing options, which is huge. Lowell Williams, Jacoby Hunt. These are legitimate varsity players. I was really impressed with both of them, and Williams is only a sophomore as well. It used a 2-quarterback system very effectively, Max Gomez being one, Chris Thompson being the other. When I was doing my stats at the end of the game, it was kind of hard to keep up with how often they were switching in and out. The other big player is Michael Lawrence for them. He's an all-state wide receiver, superb cornerback, really a shutdown corner as well. Sweetwater is, to be candid, a bit out of our coverage area, but I think that it's ranked, highly in 4A for a reason. You got anything else for us, Nick? Questions?
No, not right now. Just Muleshoe giving us some love.
Their quarterback was doing so good today.
Yeah, on that, in case you guys don't know the Danny Campos story, which, by the way, he was featured prominently in the Lone Star Varsity season preview, which we hope you guys have picked up if you haven't already. But he was the starter last year and started exceptionally well last year as a junior. He gets hurt with a high ankle sprain that he can't really shake. So instead, Keegan Gonzalez, who was initially a wide receiver, comes and plays quarterback. Does a really good job, I thought, for Muleshoe down the line, but their year ended in the area round against Breckenridge. Campos threw a lot of touchdowns last year, too many interceptions as well. If he cuts that down, I think that Muleshoe will be in really good shape. Did he throw any picks tonight?
Nope.
Okay. The other thing to keep in mind, he went to Dagan Dunham on 1 touchdown, right?
Yes.
Okay. Dunham, I saw that on Twitter someplace. So we appreciate you, as they say in Texas. Dunham is a 6'4" player. He's kind of a slimmer built guy that played offensive tackle last year. He actually moved to wide receiver / tight end. It's officially in Muleshoe's scheme. It's called the sniffer back. Shallowater also uses the sniffer back. Don Williams told me he had never heard of a sniffer back, but I can guarantee you that it definitely exists. So basically, Dunham is another big target that's 6'4". If you combine him with Campos, who is 6'2", will occasionally move from quarterback to wide receiver, you have some really some real serious height there that's tough for Muleshoe, I think, for other teams to defend. Beto Diaz is the quarterback who will step in those situations for Muleshoe. All right, let's keep going down the rest of the scores from tonight. Lamesa and Roosevelt started, but that game was canceled with 11:28 left in the second quarter. In 4A also, 3A rather, Post at Abernathy, no final there yet for you guys, although Post did have a very big lead. Floydada 33, Slayton 0. Denver City 33, Pecos 26. Denver City getting some serious work in over our colleague Brian Navarrette's alma mater. Brian was a big deal at one point in the Permian Basin as an offensive tackle for Pecos. He used to rock that purple jersey, and word on the street is he actually still has it someplace. We've been trying to get him to bring it out, maybe for Halloween, but we'll see about that. Continuing in 3A, Brownfield 26, Fort Stockton 14. Now 2A, Seagraves 26, Cedar Hill Trinity Christian 16. To give you perspective on that game, what happened, Seagraves was supposed to play the second portion of an away and home with JAL, which is a school in New Mexico. Seagraves abused the JAL last year, and for whatever reason, I can't confirm if it was because of that beating. That game did not happen this year. JAL reneged on it. Then we thought Seagraves was going to play Midland Christian. Side note, at the Cooper game, I saw Midland Christian quarterback Weston Elliott, who is a shallow water transfer, and we caught up a bit about the season. Seagraves was going to play Midland Christian. That's the equivalent of a 5A. So Coach Herford from Seagraves was going to play Seagraves varsity versus the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen from Midland Christian. It didn't end up happening. So finally, Cedar Hill Trinity Christian, which is a very strong 3A TAPS team, stepped up. Seagraves gets the win there. Let's go down 2A. Spring Lake Earth at Morton, no final there yet for you guys. Lubbock Christian 41, Lockney 32. This is the result that prompted me to actually lead the show with these Lubbock Christian, these young boys out there from LCHS that are coming at me heavy on Twitter. They're feeling some type of way, Chris, after that win. You think we should let them live, or what? Should we, tell them that they got to step their game up and do it again next week?
I mean, I think we can let them have their moment a little bit. I like that they're picking on you a little bit. That's awesome. But maybe they can step it up a little bit next week and keep improving.
I was out there to see their scrimmage against Trinity Christian, and they didn't have anything to say to me that day. Connor Atkins did, but in fairness, he wasn't coming at me heavy on Twitter. So we'll let you guys enjoy it, and as always, we really appreciate the interaction. So thank you for that. Okay, the next result: Hale Center 38, Smyer 6, Sudan 44, Rawls 28, New Deal 62, Dimmitt 12. Side note, yours truly picked the Lions to win the district. That also includes Abernathy, so it's a very strong first game there from New Deal. Freona 20, Olton 14, Crosbyton 33, Tahoka 6. That game was ended at halftime as well because of lightning. Bavina 59, Plains 0. Those are all the scores from this evening. Just a couple notes that my colleague Brian Navarrette, who was down in Odessa covering the friendship game, he wanted me to just mention that Treston Kennard and Ronald Awad combined for more than 200 yards together on the ground and then ended up sitting for most of the game. That's a 49-0 win over El Paso Burgess. And Diaze Johnson actually ran for a score and had a touchdown on an interception as well. Nick, what do these guys have for me? Anything? Guys, if you want to get some questions in, as we mentioned, you can ask us here on the app or our Facebook page, Lone Star Varsity, Snapchat, Lone Star Varsity, Instagram, Lone Star Varsity. We're kind of digital. Our digital game is kind of serious. You need to use the hashtag #AskLSVarsity to get these questions to us. You can also email me directly. I'm sure you intrepid reporters out there can find my email someplace. Send your questions in. We want to kind of make this a really fun show at the end of every Friday night to sort of go over and dissect what we saw. So Nick, if nothing else comes in now, I think we should wish everyone good night.